Welcome to the Divine Mess, a sanctuary where the dance of the empowered masculine and the divine feminine unfolds in all its glory. Join us as we delve into the heart of these cosmic energies, exploring their attributes and the profound impact they have on our lives. From the raw power of the masculine to the nurturing embrace of the feminine, we uncover the balance that leads to a life of abundance and joy. Our hosts, Kirti Deva Perriman and Tina Ryan, are your guides on this spiritual journey who blend science with soul to offer practical wisdom for harnessing your divine energy. We celebrate the beauty and imperfection, embracing the chaos of life's journey as a catalyst for growth. The Divine Mess isn't just a podcast, it's a movement towards wholeness and self-expression. So come laugh with us, cry with us, and grow with us. Every episode is an invitation to explore the depths of your being and to live out loud, authentically, and unapologetically. Subscribe and join our community of seekers as we support each other in this extraordinary, messy adventure we call life.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening. Welcome to this new episode of the Divine Mess. And for once, I'm back to introducing, which has not been the case for the past few weeks. As you might have heard, that my voice was practically gone. So my lovely co-host, Tina Marie, if it's the first time listening, welcome. For our old-time listeners, welcome back. As you know, every week I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Tina Marie, who is now a busy manager as well. Added to the CV, a busy mom of 4 beautiful boys and a lovely partner in the form of a fireman as well, and Iron Man, just to say that. And she also helped women to live the second best season of their life, especially women helping women find self-love after a separation or divorce. And for those who don't know me, I'm Kirti Deva Perman. I'm the cosmic alchemist at the Golden Temple, transmuting fear into love. Got it, Tina? See, finally. I always say transmuting love into love. That's how we go. But we are getting it right now. So like every single week, we are joined by lovely guests. And today we have a very special guest who come from a beautiful land, who was born in a beautiful land called India, but she's currently living in the US. We have Anumeha Gupta, who is a spiritual mentor and intuitive healer who help mothers transform anger into enlightenment so that they can enjoy fulfilling relationship and bring their unique gift to the world. She also studied Ayurveda with Dr. J. Apte. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing well, so my apologies for that, as well as Mother Maya, a Vedic monk. Anu is also a certified yoga teacher and ThetaHealing practitioner. And over the past 9 years, her transformational workshop and consultation in the US and India has helped several women implement holistic tools to deepen their power of gentleness, forgiveness, and love. Welcome, Anu, to the Divine Mess. We are so blessed to have you.
Thank you, Kirti and Tina. Same here.
So our first question is like, what inspired you to help mom transform anger into enlightenment?
Okay. I think it happens to be my own journey. And that also gives me the power to really speak about it. You know, the conviction comes when you've done it yourself. And I find that as mothers, we want to do the best for our children. We want to love them. We want them to be able to speak up and connect with us when they need us. At the same time, the anger keeps coming in our way. And in my own journey, I found that anger is only a messenger. It is just telling us that there's something ready to be healed within. And once we dive deep, we can actually learn so much about ourselves, which is so powerful. That's what motivates me to do this work every day.
We're just having eye contact as to who's pressing mute first, as to who gets to ask the next question. So, it's an interesting way of moving through things, because I know, being a parent of 4 boys, obviously, 2 burst and 2 bonus, as I like to say, that anger comes up quite regularly, particularly when you're moving through those early stages, because, you know, kids don't come with instruction manuals, and we're all learning. It's a, you know, learn on the job type experience when you're parenting. And it's not until someone points out your own behavior or your own inability to apologize to your own children that then you go, oh, okay, there's something that's not quite good here. And I know that it was a massive leap for me with my boys when I learned to start apologizing to them when, you know, I'd had a busy day at work or something had gone on in my day, and then their behavior was just like the final straw at the end of the day, and then mum would snap. And of course, boys, I love to press all your buttons all at the same time, and you don't know whether you're coming or you're going. But for me, it was the quickest way to let go of my anger was to apologize, to say, guys, I'm so sorry. You know, I've just had a really busy day, or I've had a fight with dad, or, you know, just something isn't sitting right for me at the moment. Or alternatively, that's really obnoxious behavior, and you really need to rein in your own behavior because it upsets me. You know, it doesn't sit, you know, it's not nice. So, you know, it's understanding whether the anger is actually from your own internal dialogue or whether it's from outside sources. You know, so that's an interesting question. For how do you find women tend to navigate that, you know, understanding whether it's their own internal dialogue or whether it is the external sources, and how do you help them separate the two?
How do I do that? So for me, I find that I use Ayurveda also in my work. And there is this energy called ojas, which we can build as moms. So when we have a low ojas, we are more reactive to what's going on around us, outside us. So my aim for mothers is always that, in spite of everything going wrong around them, and in spite of being in chaos, can they still keep their cool? Because really, we just can't do anything about the kids and how others are behaving. It's never in our control. We can only look inside. So I hear what you're saying, and I feel that mothers always seem to have an internal dialogue, which is not very pretty. It's usually about what they didn't do, how they didn't do enough, how they made wrong decisions and regretting and feeling guilty. And all these emotions make them feel so bad about themselves that now they become very cranky. So on the self-love meter, you can say it goes into negative.
And how do we go about maintaining or building the ojas? Is that correct?
Yeah.
How do we go about, is that a measure in which we can go, I need to add something more of this into my diet, or there's something more in terms of, you know, some sort of practice that I need to do in order to maintain my levels when I know that I'm feeling, you know, is there a way of feeling into whether it's low or whether it's sitting at an okay level? How do you show your clients how to maintain that, or how to build it as a muscle, so to speak?
Very nice question. So For that, let's understand what is ojas and how it is built. Ojas is this energy which you can imagine as oomph. When you have good ojas, there's almost like an energy radiating around you. The skin is glowing. You feel happy. You wake up feeling fresh. So we all can build this energy. And how we do that is by having a good digestion. So in Ayurveda, every meal takes about 30 days to digest. Every meal. It takes 30 days because it is building our tissues, the blood, the lymph. So there's a certain process it goes through. And once everything is built, the dhatus, they call it, the last thing that is built is the ojas. It's a pure essence, you can say. So now we know that if we are digesting well, we have good ojas. And one of the signs is the glow on the skin. The eyes are bright, and person feels generally happy. Okay, so then how do we build this ojas? One is how do we eat? Ayurveda is so big about not just what you eat, but how you eat it. Are you eating on the move? Are you eating in the car? Are you eating while watching TV or reading, your emails? How can you connect with the food? Because food is consciousness. So one simple way of building good ojas is actually sitting down on a clean table, saying a prayer of gratitude to the farmers, the origin of the food, and then for taking the smell and seeing the colors, being very mindful, and then eating. So that's one of the simplest ways to do that.
I know, like, I'm not so sure about the name. I think it's called Sattvic food.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
is it part of Ayurveda as well?
yeah, it is.
Can you?
I can share with you if you want.
Yeah.
Uh, Sattvic. So there, as per Ayurveda,
Mhm.
um, there are, what is it called? Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. So the food has an energy. Sattva is the energy of peace and calm and clarity is sattva energy.
Mm.
Rajas energy is very with a lot of agitation. So when we have food which is dominant in rajasic energy, it
Mm.
makes us very agitated. We can have more ambition, we can have lust, we can be more angry. So this is actually part of my webinar that I offer. One of the secret triggers of anger is what you're eating.
Mm.
We don't realize. So the Rajasic was the second energy, and the third energy is Tamasic. And Tamasic food is something which creates dullness, inertia, lethargy, brain fog, um, and it can lead into depression. Like it really brings you down. So if you want, I can share some examples of these three foods. I think that would be helpful, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
sattvic food are like all the grains are sattvic, all the fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, milk is considered sattvic. So these are some examples. And in Rajasic food, also you have vegetables, but these are like garlic. If you have too much garlic, if you have too much red chilies, if you have too many eggs, even eggs, they create the Rajasic energy in us. So I used to notice that whenever we went for a holiday, now imagine you go for a 7-week trip, you're not going to be cooking at home, like some people might, but many tend to eat in the restaurant. And that's what I do. And towards the end of the trip, I always noticed I would end up having a fight with someone. If you think of all the food you get in restaurants, especially Indian food, it is so rich in the garlic, and it is almost fried, and it has red chilies. So Rajasic food does that for us. And then Tamasic food is basically any food in a can. When you put food in a can, it's like dead food. It has lost all the life force, which we call prana. Other people call it chi. That it has lost all of it. It's just like dead food for us. So that's one example. Or leftover food, which is leftover for too many days, like that has also lost all that energy. So all that is tamasic food.
Thank you for sharing that, because I remember when I started my healing journey, I was told like to consume more sattvic food. That's why I brought this up, because I know uh, you have that knowledge to explain to our audience, like to share. Thank you for giving example as well, because that's, I feel it's really important for people to understand that, because we can hear a word and then don't understand it, but don't understand the science behind it or the spiritual aspect of it. Because I feel like you said, food definitely contribute, because I noticed when I was having like, because I love spicy food. So,
Mhm.
but I was told not to consume less of spices,
Mm.
especially the red chilies. Yeah. Well, for me, it was like for my mouth, it made the food bland, like tasteless at
Ah.
that time. But I trained
Mm.
myself to appreciate the food, like you said. And in my culture, in my sadhana, I would say, in my spiritual practice, is like just like you. I love that you said you give gratitude to the farmers. I love that,
Mm.
because we have a special prayer that we do like before eating, and it's about gratitude. And I love that you mentioned that. So thank you so much for
Mm.
sharing this part, on the healing journey. I know Tina had something to say as well, so I'm just going to leave the space for her.
Oh, I just know that I'm so much better when I eat green food. Like anytime I'm not feeling within myself very well, it's
Mm.
the minute the greens go in my smoothies, just any greens I can get my hands on, they just go in a liquid breakfast, and it just, you kind of go, oh, I feel like I'm singing again. Like my body feels very happy, and when I don't, I notice the difference. But I, I like the idea of,
Mm.
I always have gratitude when I cook because I love to cook, but
Mhm.
to add that in at dinner, I think would be a nice thing for our boys to, express gratitude for. Not only, they're always like, thank you for cooking dinner. Like I understand that part, but more about thank you for where it's come from. And also
Mm.
gives you an opening to be able to go, what's one thing you were grateful for today? Or what's the one good thing that happened in your day today? So I think that gives an opening for you to start a really good conversation around the dinner table, because it just, I find that's one time where we've got their concentrated attention.
Mm.
We're sitting, we light candles, we have dinner. It's very chilled. There's nothing intense about it. So from that perspective, adding that in is just, I love all these little 1% things that just keep getting dropped in for us when we have conversations with people about all sorts of different things, but it's just these nice little interjections into your own daily practices that for me help keep me on an even keel. And I know that when I get fired up about something, I remember our first conversation, I go, okay, where is it in my body? Where's it coming from? is it really something about myself, or is it just that someone is being a bit of a grot and they're not cleaning up after themselves? But I've sat here and I've stared. Anu has a very beautiful painting beside her head. And I know it's completely off topic, but I'm sure it's not, because it's there for a reason. So I'm going to ask Anu to tell us about the painting that she has behind her, because I'm sure there's something in it for everybody. So I'm going to ask the question now before we get to the end of the podcast.
Thanks for asking, Tina. And I just wanted to acknowledge how beautiful it is that you create such a ritual around dinner where you're lighting candles and you're all sitting together and there's no pressure to eat, to finish. Like, it just sounds so beautiful. I feel like joining you at your table someday, huh? Yeah. So this painting, this was actually, I wanted to test myself. I have never been comfortable painting. And one day I said, what can be the worst thing that can happen? Let me just go for it. And I found a design on Google and I wanted to make a goddess. That was very clear to me. I felt very drawn. I always feel drawn to goddesses and I wanted to make a goddess. And when I started making hers, my daughter joined me, which was very beautiful. And she's actually an artist. She just goes for it. She has no inhibitions about expressing her creativity. So we did it together, and slowly the goddess started taking its own shape. You will not recognize this from the photo that we were trying to copy. And I think the best part is the eyes. They came out so bright and they look like they're all knowing. And for me, they are like Goddess Durga. She represents Goddess Durga to me because she has that inner power. She's not going to take any crap from anyone. You can see that. And she can see through people. And just Durga has that power really to cut through the clutter in your life and really focus on what matters. So I get my power from her. I feel like she's there blessing me, blessing everyone in the world right here.
And I'd love to ask a little bit more about your own journey with anger. Like, when did you recognize that anger had a front seat to your life experience? When did you go, oh, I'm not sure I really like you sitting in the front seat or driving my human for me? I think I might like to drive myself. So when did you recognize that it was an issue for you? Was it pre-children, or was it once you became a mum that you felt that it was taking center stage in your life?
Yeah, it was after I became a mother. I have two children. The older one is a boy, he's 14 now. My younger one is a girl and she's 10 now. Since I had children, I found that I used to get angry more often. And I'm someone who actually loves peace. In principle, I love to keep the peace all the time. And I noticed that I used to keep quiet, and then one day on something very small, I will burst like a volcano. And then go into this deep, you can say it's like a deep pit of guilt, all and regretting and feeling like a bad mother and all that. So it went on for a long time actually. And then one day I remember I got so mad that I actually took my child's iPad because he just refused to stop watching screen. And I had a voice telling me continuously, I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good mother. Look how much screen my child is watching. this is so wrong. And so I just picked up his iPad and I flung it on the bed, hoping it won't break, but it it fell from the bed and then it stopped working. To my dismay, it didn't break, but it just stopped working. And then I had both my children crying. And then I went back to my room and then I started sobbing and I was like, what is this? What's going on? Because right then, the next day, my son fell sick. And that was always a pattern. Whenever I lashed out, I got mad, the next day my child would fall sick. So I understood that this is going deeper. And I could see that my kids had started lying to me. So that was a big wake-up sign. For someone who loves peace, I also love truth a lot. And there is, that is like totally not done. So I knew something had to change, and even my sister helped me a lot. She helped me a lot with this.
And what do you think were some of the biggest keys or tools for you to move through that space of anger, to see it for what it actually was? I know that you said in the beginning that you help women get to the source of where their anger comes from. And do you have a better understanding of where that comes from for you now, in knowing that it's not necessarily somebody else's behavior, it's just your reaction to it?
That's a very yummy question. Thank you for asking. So this is what I discovered. My anger, so let me first start with this, that anger is a messenger. And under the anger, there could be fear, sadness, guilt, embarrassment, hurt. So all these emotions are actually being covered by the anger. Now for me, if you notice in this story, I was feeling guilty. And I was feeling the fear that if my child watches so much screen, he's maybe going to end up spoiling his eyes or something's going to happen to him. I don't even know what it is. It's such a big hype around screens and how they're bad for children that it doesn't have to be logical. So these are the emotions that lie under anger. Okay, now when you trace these emotions, you could create these emotions like I was creating with the inner voice all the time. Not a good mother, not a good mother, right? So that is one thing. The other thing is it could trace back to your childhood, where someone didn't make you feel good enough. And you believe you're not good enough. And with your children, they keep pushing the button which reminds you you're not good enough. Children, you push all those buttons. So you get so mad because you remember from your childhood and there's a raw nerve there and you can't stop yourself. There's a tiny voice telling you all the time, don't do it, stop. Maybe you can breathe, maybe you can count, and you just can't do anything. You do just react. And if the other person tells you, Mom, remember to breathe, you get even more mad.
I remember,
So
you have all the good intentions and all the really great tools in the world. Like, I know essential oils worked really well for me and my boys. I know that turning music on was really good. I know that laughter was always a really good button for us in terms of being a family to try and break things up. Or sometimes it was actually removing the biggest problem in the room, me. So Mama's going to go and have a shower, or I'm going to go and frog march myself around the block, and burn off the frustration, and actually just, you know, because it's always that case of when emotions are high, intelligence is really low. So the minute you're in that space of they're riling you up and you're like going, oh, I've got to cook the dinner and there's 10 loads of washing and nobody else does anything and you've left stuff all over the floor and someone spilt milk and cereal all over the floor and the dogs need to be fed, you know, and there's, in your brain, it all needs to be done at the same time, you know, like there's no sensible thought. And that's where you need that circuit breaker to be able to, like you say, take a deep breath and just go. For some moments, it was me locking myself in the pantry and just like 10 really deep breaths to calm the situation. But it's one of those things, it's a navigation process. I don't know if you found exactly the same thing, but as your children age, so do you. And hopefully we get a little bit wiser and a little bit more able to recognize their cries for time and attention. And so their behavior goes from being fantastic to being off the Richter, really bad. But then I noticed that my boys were also very influenced by food. I'd go to work, their grandparents would pick them up. Their grandmother was fond of anything in a packet. And so she'd give them the packet stuff right as they were walking out the door to get in the car. And the minute they got in the car, it was literally like someone flicked a switch with my kids and they were feral. It was like putting two feral cats in a really small container. But that was some of the things that I learned over time, is that my youngest child could not handle additives, couldn't handle copious amounts of sugar, you know, and my eldest boy needed stuff very orderly and timed, or otherwise he got hangry. And so, you know, if there wasn't enough food in the system, then their behavior, you know, so then you become reactive to their own behavior. And I'm equally as bad because they come from me. So all of these traits that they have are mine also, which we have to recognize, which is not, it's not the nicest dawning realization that you have when you go, oh, they're me, aren't they? Oops. So it's just, and it's also giving yourself space and grace. Do you find that? Just going, oh, I didn't know that yesterday, but I know that today. So I can just add that into my level of understanding, A, about myself, but B, about my children as well. So we can give ourselves a little bit of an emotional break from the evil green gremlins that do the cheerleading in our brains about you're not good enough for this, or you're not a great parent. And then someone once said something to me that just made the most spectacular difference for me, is this is their journey. It doesn't matter what you do, you cannot make a mess of it. They chose you before they even came in. They signed a little agreement with you that said, we agree, we're coming in, you're going to be our parent, and we're going to accept the journey that you take us on until we fly the nest and occasionally need to come back for food or shelter or finances or something that they tend to come back for. But that for me was a little bit of a, like someone had taken the weight off your shoulders, because you'd have this, I don't know what it is about mums. I don't know if dads experience the same things. I'd love to know. But this ultimate level of perfection that we needed to create the perfect home environment and the perfect family holidays and the perfect food, and the, you know, that it's all nutritionally ticked off on the boxes, and they're going to the good school and they're wearing the right clothes and they're doing all the stuff. They really don't care. Not while they're small, at least, anyway. They don't care whether they're fashionable. They just care that mum and dad are there and that they're getting the emotional support and there's food going in their belly at the end of the day and they've got a comfy bed to sleep in. So I think it's once we get over ourselves that we can relax into parenting and living lives with our children instead of being these perfect Stepford type people. I don't think we need that so much. But how are you finding now that your children are that bit older? Are you more forgiving towards yourself on this parenthood journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I learned, like you said, Tina, that we grow up with so many shoulds. Mom should do this, the kids should look like this, they should behave like this. All these shoulds, they really feel very heavy. And now that I have crossed 40, I think that's when you start looking into your life and removing things that don't work really for you at all and which are keeping you small. And just like Durga, I have now just dropped all the shoulds. There are hardly any shoulds that I stick to. And that's only if I want to. No one else is deciding for me. And I've also started seeing that my relationship with my children is even more important than what they've eaten and how many times they've had a bath. Because, bath today for some children, it seems to be a big struggle. You can ask a lot of parents. And I grew up in a country where every morning without fail, we used to have a bath. If not once, we can even have twice or thrice, depending on the weather. And so it was a big shift for me to allow my kids a break from bath. And so dropping all these expectations from them, from me, and something I tell myself all the time is I did my best yesterday and I will do better tomorrow. Because I think guilt, like I knew guilt very personally, very. It was my best friend. And I feel very light now, very light. I wake up in the morning and I can feel so light and happy in the day, whereas earlier I was so heavy with all the guilt. Morning, waking up and thinking of all the things I didn't do correctly. So these shifts of dropping the shoulds, and then there's another exercise that I have mothers do, and I can share it here if you like. I have them make a list of what are the things you need to do. And then they make a list of all those things. Need to do this, need to do that, that whole list, like you said, right? Need to feed the dog, need to make dinner, all this list, okay? And then I ask them, let me say not make them, I invite them to write a new list where they say, I get to. I get to drop my child to school. I get to feed the dog. And then they write this new list, and then I ask them to feel the energy in the body, and it has completely shifted. So, what happens here, Tina? I would like to go a little deep here. What happens is, as women, our ancestors, we know that when patriarchy came to power, a lot of women were subjugated. They had a lot of anger and they started believing they are victims. Correct? Would you agree with me? Right? So what happens is when we have such a firm belief that we are a victim, that belief goes into our DNA. And then it gets transferred from child to child. So now today, if there is a mother who has to feed the dog or feed the children, and she has 100 tasks to do, and no one is helping her at all, what happens to her brain? It's reminded of her ancestors, the same belief that I am a victim. So now when she gets mad, she's not the only one getting mad, because we carry our ancestors on our back. That anger comes from so many generations that it is a very powerful anger.
And it's interesting when you end up being the black sheep, I suppose we might call it, or the one person in the family that chooses to go, actually, no, I don't want to follow that traditional path. I don't want to do it or in exactly the same way as someone else has done it. I don't want to overly concern myself with what my mother-in-law thinks of how I keep my house or how I dress my children or how I behave with my children. That's my relationship. All of these things that we feel that, we invite them over for dinner and we've got to sit up straight and we've got to look better and we've got to do all of these things. And then you start looking at yourself and go, where did that come from? Where did that expectation come from about the china and the food that we serve and the glassware that we serve and the type of wine that we put on the table and all of this like built up like levels of resentment and anger, like it just brews on the inside. And you're going, who am I trying to impress? Like, where does that desire to impress or that desire to have the box ticked or say, thank you very much, that was beautiful, or we love you because you stack all of these things in a really nice, neat, tidy little row. Why? And it's a good thing, but it's also a very challenging thought process when you start asking the whys and then you start unpacking and then you look at it and you go, I don't want to be part of your circus anymore. I found for me unpacking all of those things and going, this is not my merry-go-round anymore. Once I started looking at my anger and my guilt and, I spent more time in circle with other women, meditation, journaling, and went, this is not my circus and this is not my rodeo. This is not my group of humans that I'm meant to spend time with anymore. And it's when you radically shift how you think, how you eat, how you move your body, because you've recognized all of these signs and symptoms that produce anger, frustration, guilt, or all of these things, and you move away from it, there's such a loud outcrying from all those people that want you to be Tina 1.0. And Tina 1.0 follows the rules and she says yes, and nothing's too much of a bother, and all of these things get stacked on top. That's okay. She can take one more rock in her backpack. It doesn't matter if it looks like she might be drowning. That's okay. She's a superhuman. But when you kind of offload that backpack of everybody else's expectations and step away from it, and you become this new version of yourself, it's almost like you've had plastic surgery, like, well, emotional plastic surgery, shall we say, that they don't recognize you, that they don't recognize your behaviors, they don't recognize your languaging, that it all doesn't make any sense to them because they're very happy with the level of comfort. Do you find that your ladies that come to you are at that breaking point and they find it challenging to step into that 2.0 version, or they're just looking for some strategies to cope with the 1.0 version, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. So when ladies come to me, first of all, they are really desperate. They are ready for a change. And somewhere I would say it is also divine timing. And for me, I hold a container for them. I do theta healings and Ayurveda. So it's a container they have. They come and they choose where they want to be. Where are they comfortable being right now? Someone might go to 2, someone might go to version 3, Someone might stay at a softer version of one, and that is completely their choice. At the same time, like with everything, there's one thing I keep telling them. For me, like from what you were saying, what resonated really was, okay, if you have guests and you lay out really beautiful china, okay, are you doing it because you should be doing it? It is an expectation. You're supposed to be doing it. You want to get 100 marks. Or you're doing it because you enjoy the china. You feel gratitude these people have come. You want to share it with them. What is the reason? So for every decision they make, every minute they live their life, I just give them one mantra. And my mantra is, which was given to me by Mother Maya. She's a former Vedic monk. And when I actually, first time when I met her, it was online, but she was like live. And that's when she gave me this mantra. And the mantra was, every minute, choose what makes you happy. And I use it all the time. You don't want to feed the dog? You get your child to feed the dog. If that makes you happy. Otherwise, you feed the dog because it makes you happy. So, yeah, so that's how we stop being a victim. We get the power in our hands.
Like throughout the episode, like you have been mentioning different tools and techniques, like,
Yeah.
for example, about the eating, about what makes you happy. So the analogy you made about going in the pit of guilt and blame, like how mom, that internal dialogue. So what is your advice to mom listening, or people who know moms as well going through that phase before they go to that pit? Is there like anything they can do? Is there anything they can, any advice you have for them before they even think of the pit or even go into the pit?
Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, one is for sure giving ourselves grace and saying that statement, I did my best yesterday, I will do better tomorrow. That really helps me. And the other thing is there is this famous lady called Katie Byron, and she has 4 questions on her website. I don't remember what the technique is called, but there are 4 questions, and she has it on her website. Her name is Katie Byron. And that's when you are really questioning if your guilt is really justified. Suppose you're guilty about the child watching too much screen. So you go through those 4 questions and you understand that actually your fear is quite unfounded. So that is another tool that people can use.
I know screen time makes a huge component in our house. Teenage boys have a excellent way of wanting to hibernate from ages like 12 to 17 and getting them out of the house and recognizing that there's a world going on outside their front door, and it's managing their expectation for the amount of time that they have, and trying to also understand where their anger comes from when you're telling them to turn it off. And understanding that in some ways it's their only method of communication, or their chosen method of communication with their friends, that they may see at school, they may not see at school. So it's their only, and when you it's like someone putting a time limit on you to say, you only get an hour to talk to your friends within a day. Like, but we're also trying to build men that we love to know who are well-rounded, you know, that they pay attention to their schooling and to their responsibilities at home, and, you know, that also get to have fun time to hang out with their friends and to play games and to shoot zombies or to do whatever it is that they love to do online, whatever their chosen thing is. Is there one like final tip that you could give to parents to help kids navigate their own anger? Like, it's all very well and good being reasonable to a parent, but have you found one thing that's been really good with your kids in helping them navigate their own anger cycle and what that's like?
To help kids. One thing for sure is food really helps. A hungry child, especially in Ayurveda, if he's a fire dominant child, really needs to eat at certain intervals. And if he's too hungry, he gets hangry very quickly. So for sure, I find food is very calming for children. Milk, if they drink milk or maybe substitutes of milk, they are very calming. So parents can help children by feeding them or providing food from time to time. That is one I find easy way to keep tempers low.
Or setting clear boundaries, I think, for when they can start and when they can finish. And we find that for us, having to give our boys like a 10-minute heads up that your time's almost done, and then a 5-minute heads up, so they've got that time to kind of wind their way out of the world that they're in, you know, that it's not an automatic, like someone switched off the light switch, you know, they've chopped off a limb that they can no more, you know, that they can't continue on. We're giving them a way to cycle out, because you know, the minute they're in, they can't hear anything, they can't see anything else. And that, I find, for a parent just raises your level of frustration and anger when they're not as plugged in to everything else that's going on around them. But we also too have to remember we were once children, and that we were once very zoned in and very self-concerned, shall we say, that we really didn't worry about what was going on around us, other than, was there food in the fridge and did I have a comfy bed to sleep in? You know, they were kind of the things that were the most important. But I find for us, giving our kids warnings is still tricky to get the off button to go off, but it's done. Did you have any last questions, Dee, for Anu?
It's just about like what anger has taught you, if you can share that first. And especially like for people who are starting on their healing journey or healing their anger, if you have like one piece of advice for them. That's my two-part question for you.
Okay. So what has anger taught me? Anger taught me to speak up for myself. I used to always keep quiet and agree with other people because I was a people pleaser. So anger taught me to really connect with myself. What do I want? How do I want this to go? What is going to make me happy right now? And speak up for that. So that's a big gift it gave me. And for anyone starting their journey, healing journey, first of all, congratulations. It's a very beautiful journey. You learn so much about yourself. And one tip I can give you for that is, I would say, if you get very angry, there's a reason for that. You're not a bad person. And now that you're getting in here into this journey, just hold everything that comes up with compassion. Don't judge yourself. Oh, why am I like that? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? When things come up, just hold everything with compassion. It's great enough that you are trying to get onto the other side. That is great enough. And I do have a handout that I give. That handout has 3 things people can do for anger. So that would be a good handout, I think, as well.
Thank you for sharing this. And definitely we have your links. And I feel like your episode, like what you talk about, it feels like there are several chapters in what we talk about because it's a beautiful, like you shared about your knowledge in Ayurvedic, Ayurveda and how it can help, like being mindful. Like nowadays in the Western approach, it's called like mindful eating. And you shared that in a beautiful way as well. And I feel like your experience and journey on in terms of the parenting and motherhood, especially, it was beautiful how you describe it in the way that it gave me an understanding of a visual because I work with mom as well, and now I have a visual of how they are feeling. Because I'm not a mom in this lifetime. I know I was in a previous lifetime, but now I get a better understanding and a better perspective of how I can help them. So it was really helpful personally and for my coaching approach as well, to understand that, and especially to understand my mom as well, where she's coming from. And because I grew up in a South Indian culture as well, so it's a bit related to what you're sharing. So I do understand where you're coming from and using your term. And I love your connection with Durgama. I wanted to ask you a lot of questions about that, but I hold back. Or else Tina will feel left out. No, I'm joking. But it's a beautiful I feel a beautiful energy in terms of how you describe anger and how guilt was your best friend, was your bestie. Now it's like, yeah, you're here. You're just an acquaintance, like it's like you're just an acquaintance. And so thank you so much for coming. I will leave the few words for Tina if you have.
We would love to say thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to have a chat the second time around. And as always, it's different from the first time as it is to the second time. So thank you for joining us today on the virtual couch for the Divine Mess. And we would love to have you back to chat about Ayurveda or gods and goddesses, because we kind of dig that conversation as well. So thanks again for your time. And as always, we love you. And thank you for sharing your most precious resource, which is your time with us today. And until next week, be kind to yourself and give yourself a little bit of space and grace to realize perhaps where your anger is coming from this week. Maybe journal a little bit about it, and it might reveal a few surprises. So until then, take good care, and we will talk to you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.